The bottle I had designed years ago, the Rolaids bottle. I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm going to rebuild this in Shapr3D just to show a build sequence, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm going to incorporate lofting, front to back lofting, and then using a variety of different radiusing techniques to accomplish this shape. So this is just an image I brought in. I took a photograph of it. So if you go under add here, you can bring in an image, you just position it in there, select, you can go get a JPEG from your computer, and then just size that and put it into position. So I have that all set up here. So I'm going to create the contour of this front surface, and I'm going to mirror that to the back, and then I'm going to do another sketch plane, which is the profile of the bottle, and I'm going to loft all those three together to create our main object. So here is the front, and I'm going to have the back sketch and the center sketch, and you'll see all three of these. So there's the middle, and the front and the back are exactly the same. So let's just go to the front. And we'll just talk about how to. We can see all these. Now, since this is a photograph, I have a little bit of parallax, so it's not perfect, but I'm just using the photograph as a guide. I'm making my sketch planes here perfect. I'm using geometry, I'm mirroring it over and making it really clean and get everything to line up. The main thing is I'm getting these points, this point here that delineates this curve. I'm lining them up with this to a certain degree. I'm not putting it in any kind of an odd position, because I've done a lot of lofting in different programs, and we have to kind of be strategic in a way that we're going to loft this front to back, that it's pretty clean, because we're going to do some radiusing on that. And you'll see how all of that, what that means when I do the radiusing. So it's pretty straightforward, but I'm creating this little space here because I want to have that curve right around the side of the bottle and keep that clean, because we're integrating the draft angle and the soft gesture on the side of the bottle. This part in here is a design edge. It's quite drastic, and it's going to create this beautiful indented area that comes across from the front of the bottle to the back of the bottle. So it's going to be quite nice. It'll be interesting. So once I get all those set up, I don't need my image anymore, so I'm just going to put that away. And if I double click up here, I'll have a 3/4 view of my sketches. So if I select Shift, oh, by the way, I'm working on a PC, so I'm not using the iPad with the pencil. I do that also. I do a lot of the work on this in that. So I'm going back and forth, which is quite amazing for Shapr3D to be able to go back and forth between these different platforms. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. So by selecting these three here, I can go to Loft, and voila, there is the basic kind of a blocked out shape just to get started. The most important thing right now is that I have this nice curved side, and I have this compound curve area on both sides. I have a flat top and a flat bottom, so I'm able to manipulate this and work with this. So that's the beginning. The next part is to create this curve front and back, which I've talked about in a couple of other tutorials. Briefly, what we're doing here is we're curving the front and the back. And by doing that, we're creating a ruled surface on the front and the back that we can put labels on, decals and pressure-sensitive labels. They're sort of like paper. They need a ruled surface to stick on. And it also prevents paneling. By curving this front and the back, it's a nice contour, but it prevents any kind of paneling, which is where the front of the bottle and the back of the bottle kind of pillow out or in. It's not a really nice thing. So as a designer, we want to control that. So I'm going to do that in this next phase. So by selecting these three, and since I had this mass sitting here, by selecting this widget and kind of extruding this up, I'm automatically removing the material from that mass all the way up to the top here. Correct at the top and deselect. And then we have, so you can see how much of material I removed. That is the contour of my bottle, front to back, and I have my sides. Now the rest of the process here is going to be radiusing these resulting edges in a very strategic way so I can get the rest of the contours. So let's remove these. Not remove, I'm just deselecting them so they're not visible. All right, so I'm going to start off by radiusing this top here. Now this top gets pretty round across here. So I'm going to select these four corners. Let's just move this over. All right, so with those selected, I am going to radius all four of those. When I first did this, it was more like, let's just see, how far I can go, what's going to happen. So I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to start to round all those corners. So it's automatically radiusing this and combining all the resulting surfaces. So I could keep going past that curve. See how it's coming down in the front there? That could happen. I need to be careful about how close some of those edges come to where I'm going to radius. So what I want to do, I'm going to play a little bit safe. I'm going to go to about here. I don't need to get a perfect circle on the top. I just need to have a nice landing here that's close to, I'm using a stock closure on here, which will be round. So it's basically a cylinder at the top. But you can see how this came around here really nice. I got some nice contouring, which is working out really well. So the next part is I'm going to radius these other two edges in a different axis. So that's what's unique about this process right here. So I have those two selected. So let's just move this over, move this in a little bit. So if I select this, what I want to do is have a kind of a drooped shoulder here. So I'm going to pull this out, and it's automatically blending those compound curves. I have a ruled surface on the side, and I have a compound curve up in this negative area. So it's blending that in there very nicely. So it's just a matter of how far. I'm just guessing right now. I have this built on another layer that we'll work with later, but it was about here. I got this nice soft shoulder here. So I'm going to go back and deselect that. So that's quite nice. So you can see how I'm blending all these surfaces by using this process. So down here at the bottom, I have these two edges. These are a little bit more straightforward, but I'm going to maintain this kind of frontal radius feeling that I have going here. So by pulling those out, I'm just going to radius that, quite generous. So I have a nice soft edge there. Deselect. And there it is. So that's our basic geometry. Just a couple more radiused edges here, and then pretty good shape. So now what I've created, I've blended all these surfaces, radiused some of these contours. Now I want to radius this entire edge. This edge now travels all the way around the bottle, from the front to the back to the sides, all around. It's one continuous run of segments. So since this geometry is built pretty clean, Shapr is going to like it. So it's going to want to help me with this. So I'm going to just select that one edge, and I want to radius that. So instead of going through and selecting all of these edges independently, which is what I would normally do in another program, I'm just selecting one, and I want to radius that chain or that link of six. So by pulling that out, it automatically is saying, okay, I see this sequence, and I'm going to help you out with that. See how it blinked there for a second? Because that's quite a sequence. We're blending a lot of different, we have some compound curves, ruled surfaces, reverse curves, positive curves, straight edges, a lot going on there. So let's just say yes. So I had to think about it for a second. Got to give it a moment. And it liked it. So now I have this clean. So as I'm going through here, I know I have clean geometry because it accepted it and says it's going to be a nice solid body. In Shapr, everything's about solids. They don't do surface modeling and all that, which allows for, it can allow for problems, but it can also give you a lot more versatility. So that's a trade-off, and I'm trying to understand that myself and working in Shapr3D. Love this program. It's great. So this is a really nice clean piece of geometry. There's one more sequence. I'm going to select that on top, And I do want a radius across the top here, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be huge, about like that. And that's it. That's my solid body right there. So we're in pretty good shape. So the other details would be this label area. I don't want to put that in there because I'm going to do a later tutorial just on adding some color and doing a little bit of rendering and a visualization of this. So I kind of want to know where that label area is. And then there's a little in-mold graphic in the top here. So I'm going to talk about that briefly. So here is the body. So I have this completed body, and it should be very similar to this one. And there it is. It's essentially what I just did, but we do have this little in-mold area here, this label. So I'm just going to go through that quickly. So we come down here. Let's put that away. So to create this label, it's just a rectangle, so it's pretty straightforward, but it is on this curved surface. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to project that onto this front surface that we have. So let's start with the label sketch. So all I did was from the front view, let's go to the front. I just drew this rectangle and kind of positioned it, centered it, and got it about where I wanted it. So once I did that, I pulled it out towards the front so I can see it. Put it on a, basically it's another sketch layer or level. And I turned that into a body. So all I did was extrude it like we've been doing before. You click on it and just extrude it. I made it arbitrary thickness. It really doesn't matter at this point. Let's get rid of the sketch. I radius the corners because I want that on this label area. So I radius those corners. And now what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can find the tool. I am going to project down here. So if you select project, it will ask you select items to project. So that what I want to do is project this slab that I have floating in front. I want to project that onto this the bottle body. I'm not going to do that because I have it done here, obviously, but it's pretty straightforward. You select this part, and then it's going to say, what do you want to project it on? So if I select the body here, it'll just project that outline onto the bottle. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. So what that gives us, it gives us, I'm going to make that go away, and let's get rid of that. It gives us that piece of geometry, which is now imprinted on the front of that bottle body. So when we go into our rendering mode, we can select that, make it a color and a finish and a look. It's like a separate entity that we can deal with when we get involved with the visualization. So that's the reason we have that there. Another detail I did here was the, see if I can find this. There's this little R that's molded in. So they have an area here where we can bring in copy. See if I can find this. So if you go into sketch, and then you go to more, they have text. So here they have a whole series of different fonts that you can work with, and you can bring in and create type. They don't have it where I can bring in a specific logo type or vector artwork or even JPEG labels. For our graphic design and package design, it would be really, really nice if we had that. I would love to bring in a label and just put it in there. I do that in the other programs I work with, so I can do my full rendering, everything with full art and everything, because I'm working with the graphic designers, and I want to bring that in, and I even want to bring in vector line work from art and then in-mold that into the bottle. Shapr hasn't done that yet. They probably will because they're moving along very quickly and they're doing an amazing job. So I'm not giving them a hard time at all. It's just not at that level yet that we need to do some of that stuff. But right now we can do that in Photoshop and Illustrator to execute some of those details. So here we can bring in some type, which is great. And that's what I did with this R. So I brought in this R, and that's a piece of geometry. So I can extrude that and radius it, and I can do things with that. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now. So that's just the sketch for that. And what I did was I moved that over and I created a little circle. And let's just move in. So all I did was lay that into this geometry. So the front of my bottle is curved. I did not curve this little piece of art. I could. I would have to create another body and then difference that and make that curve so it fits perfectly on the front of that. Usually an in-mold detail will be approximately 30 thousandths protruding, 30 thousandths of an inch protruding off the front of that surface. So here I'm just setting this up for a visual point of view. I don't need to do that for molding. If I was going to save out an STL and make or a step file and make an actual three-dimensional object from this, then I would have to do all that detailing. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it like that. Because the next tutorial I'm going to do is going to do some visualization on this, which is pretty quick. The visualization here in Shapr3D is extremely efficient. It's really well done. So the next part of this thing is the cap. Now the cap is a stock cap. All it is a cylinder, and it's a two-piece cylinder, so I'm not doing a lot with this. I just set up a sketch plane. I made a circle that fits nicely on top of where this finish might be on the top of the bottle. And then I just took that and extruded that twice. And let's get rid of the plane. So now I have these pieces here. There is a little finger detail, which we could integrate into this. I've done that in a couple of other tutorials. I think the only other thing I would do here geometric-wise would be select this little edge here and just put a little bit of radius on that. So when we do our lighting, the rendering is all about catching the light. It's a little bit too big. So let's go, I don't know. Let's go about like that. Okay, so this is the piece of geometry. So I've got this beautiful contour, almost identical to the original design, and I did this so much faster than I did the first time around when I designed it. When I was designing it, I was still discovering the design. This time I knew what the design was, I knew where I wanted to go, but it is extremely efficient in Shapr. It's an amazing program, so I'm going to continue to pursue some of these bottle designs for our class so we can learn how to create some of these contours. All right, so I hope that was fun and beneficial. So that's the end of this. I'll continue working with this when we do the rendering.